Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a space you probably don't normally associate with rapid tech innovation. We're talking about jails and prisons. Specifically, we're looking at the massive digital modernization happening right now inside Oregon's correctional facilities. It is a really fascinating shift. We're moving away from this era of purely analog oversight, right? And we're stepping into a highly connected, data-driven reality behind bars.
Okay, let's dive right into this, because we need to immediately address the elephant in the room. When people hear that adults in custody are being handed tablets or doing video calls, the instant reaction is often that the system is getting lenient, or that handing incarcerated individuals digital screens is basically giving them a luxury. It's a super common assumption, but as you'll see from the data and the actual policies in place, that assumption completely misses the mark on what's actually happening here.
The reality is actually pretty clear-cut. Technology here is a management tool. It is absolutely not a shortcut around correctional supervision. In Oregon, these digital tools are being deployed with a very specific purpose in mind: to reduce administrative friction and create safer, more organized facilities. Really, it's about giving correctional agencies better, more modern tools to manage the incredibly complex day-to-day operations of a modern prison.
Section 1. The new digital routine. What tech looks like behind bars. So, to understand exactly what this looks like in practice, let's look at the actual digital tools operating inside the Oregon Department of Corrections network right now. These specific communication and scheduling platforms have become standard parts of the daily correctional routine in Oregon. Take electronic messaging, for example. Adults in custody use a service called Getting Out, which they access directly on institutional tablets. For video calls, they use IC Solutions, operating on heavily monitored kiosks or tablets. And even for folks on the outside, scheduling visits is now managed totally digitally through the ICS Corrections website. We're not talking about futuristic sci-fi concepts here. These are the day-to-day platforms currently replacing traditional paper logs and those constantly overloaded physical phone lines.
Section 2. Why prisons are going digital. Institutional priorities.
So, why do it? Well, it's because these digital solutions directly solve the massive logistical challenges of running a prison. Just look at security and safety. Digital systems provide clear, instantly auditable logs and heavily monitored communications. And how about staffing efficiency? Digital visitor scheduling and messaging absolutely reduce the immense physical pressure on phone lines and waiting rooms, which clears up major staff bottlenecks. And for rehabilitation, these tools offer much more reliable contact with families and allow staff to accurately track participation in evidence-based programming. And this brilliantly illustrates how every single correctional goal has a direct digital counterpart.
The absolutely crucial point is this: modern correctional management depends on accurate data, controlled access, and reliable communication channels. Literally, without electronic records and internal databases, it is incredibly difficult for staff to seamlessly manage complex things like security classification, sentence computation, and case planning. The technology isn't replacing the staff, right? It's giving them the necessary visibility to actually do their jobs effectively.
Section 3. More tools, not more freedom. The reality check.
Now, we really need to dispel the myth that introducing this tech somehow provides unrestricted freedom to adults in custody. The stark contrast between these devices makes it crystal clear. A tablet in a correctional facility does not function like your personal iPad at home. On your personal device, you've got unrestricted internet access, instant private messaging, the whole shebang. But on a correctional tablet, the ecosystem is entirely locked down. It is tightly controlled for institutional use only. Communications are constantly monitored, and messages are intentionally delayed so they can go through strict security screening. It's a highly restricted tool designed solely for a controlled environment.
Also, we definitely shouldn't assume the physical world is just disappearing. In-person visiting absolutely still exists in Oregon institutions. The digital options, like those video visits we mentioned, operate right alongside traditional methods, subject, of course, to ongoing health and safety protocols. The big takeaway here is that technology supplements traditional correctional practices to improve administrative efficiency. It doesn't erase them.
Section 4. The human element. Re-entry and rehabilitation.
Now, beyond just administrative efficiency, we need to examine how these data systems impact the absolute most important goal of corrections: making sure people don't come back. And this is the very definition of re-entry. It's the process of an incarcerated individual transitioning back into the community. A huge part of successful re-entry relies on maintaining family ties and coordinating with employers and service providers. Now, just think about the geography of a state like Oregon for a second. The facilities are spread across massive areas. Family members often live hundreds of miles away from the institution, which leads to extreme isolation. Digital communication bridges that massive physical gap, keeping those absolutely vital support networks alive.
Let's take a look at how this builds throughout a person's time in the system. Here's the structural flow of the Oregon DOC's correctional services. You've got intake, education, case management, and finally, re-entry planning. Now, these units depend heavily on timely information. For example, if a person finishes an educational program, case management needs to know about that instantly to adjust their re-entry plan. Integrated tech ensures that critical information isn't lost in a giant paper shuffle between these vital stages of rehabilitation.
Section 5. The hurdles, challenges of digital corrections.
Of course, rolling out an interconnected digital network inside concrete, high-security facilities that were built decades ago is, well, far from seamless. The challenges are significant and ongoing. First off, the costs. Secure systems, network maintenance, and staff training require massive, continuous IT infrastructure budgets. Then there's the security risk. Institutions have to constantly guard against device tampering, data breaches, and communication loopholes. Even a tiny technical failure can create a huge operational problem. And crucially, there's the issue of unequal access. Not every incarcerated person gets to use these tools. Access varies wildly depending on the specific institution, the person's housing status, and disciplinary restrictions. So, it's an expanding system for sure, but definitely an uneven one.
So, to summarize everything we've looked at in this explainer, Oregon's digital shift represents a much more connected model of custody, but one that keeps security absolutely at the center. Technology here isn't a luxury. It's a fundamental, structural evolution of both daily oversight and long-term reentry preparation. Which leaves us with this final, essential question to consider. As our correctional facilities inevitably continue to digitize, can we perfectly balance the deep human need for connection and rehabilitation with the institutional mandate for absolute security? It's the ultimate tightrope that modern corrections must walk, and exactly what we'll be watching as these digital systems evolve. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope it gave you a really clear picture of what's actually happening behind the walls.